Taking Saturday off and coming here shows that you're willing to learn and improve yourselves. And as Mark said, we're here to get better. Iron sharpens iron. That's what I always tell my kids. If you're going to be dating somebody, make sure they make you better. So being here is always a good thing. Mark and Scott both talked about the infinite mindset and thinking ahead. And there's a Greek saying that society grows strong and well when old men plant trees under whose shade they'll never sit under. So we are talking about doing things long term. I always think of, with me in practice, it's not just me, it's the future generations who need chiropractic care. And there are definitely things that you can compromise that is a benefit to you, the individual chiropractor, but are bad for chiropractic in general and are bad for the future. And I try to kind of, if at all possible, eliminate all those, or at least minimize them as much as possible. So my goal is to never try to kind of, do things wrong, or I consider wrong, that could have a negative outcome in the future generations of chiropractors coming through. So today's topic will be about patient retention, and also, there probably should be time, I'm going to talk to some of the problems you may have having a practice like this. And there are problems, because no practice is simple, no practice is perfect. You will run into issues no matter what type of practice you have. So if you're like me, you somehow got on some kind of chiropractic email list, and you're bombarded by at least 20 different chiropractic groups as to how to get 30 new patients this month, or 50 new patients in a week, or whatever. And what can you say about that? I mean, this is not geared toward this type of practice. The reason why they need 30 new patients every month is because they're losing 30 new patients from last month. So they have the revolving door practice, or the hole in the bucket practice, where as fast as you pour water in or new people come in, that's how they're leaving. I saw this in one of the chiropractic, back when they would send newspapers. And I don't know if it was the WCA or the Dynamic Chiropractic, I think it was called. The average chiropractor who bills insurance, and this at least a decade old, will see a new patient in a lifetime 3 to 12 times. In a lifetime. So if that patient comes to your office and you're billing insurance, you got 3 to 12 visits from them. So in that model, they're going to try and maximize as much as we can charge them to do whatever we can to get them, which is why they need 30, 50 new patients every month. Man, that would drive me insane. One, I can't remember that many names. I can't. I have a hard time with the patients I serve now, and I'm just like, guy with the blue shirt. So that's what or until I can remember their name later. It's just, it's crazy. Again, this is the practice you come to for the rest of your life, and this is what I let people know. So there are certain key things you need to do in order to retain your patients. And the first one, and the most important one, is to educate them as to what chiropractic is, how it's practiced in this office, and why they should choose this office, and why they should become lifetime practice members. And if you're not doing an orientation, you should be. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but there are multiple things that over the years, like as Scott said, I've done my orientation so many different ways. I don't know that if I've given the same orientation twice. So the person sitting in front of me, I do one-on-ones. Every individual is different. So there's going to be certain things I talk about with someone. Once I know if they're married, do they have children, what their job is, and then I can kind of try and tweak that accordingly. But there are certain key things that I believe everybody needs to know. The first one is, I read one of Simon Sinek's books, Start With Why. And so why do I practice this way? Why do I do the things I do? And you have to talk about vision. You have to talk about the big vision that you have in practice. For me, I start with imagine, and I don't say it this way, but I always want them to imagine a community where every single person you encounter is functioning and doing everything the best that they can. so that the person at your bank in charge of your money is not making an error. The person teaching your children is teaching them correctly. The police officer responding to an emergency is doing things appropriately. The chiropractor who's adjusting you is not going to make a mistake on your spine, right? Imagine if everybody is doing that, how much that benefits all of us. It's the premise of the rising tide raises all the ships. So if everybody's doing well, we all benefit from that. And so I kind of start them off with that big vision. And especially in people probably under the age of 40, 35, this resonates really well. Because as Mark was talking about, the old, the old capitalistic Milton Friedman type of version, although I don't know that what Simon says is 100% right with Milton Friedman, because Milton Friedman does go into other things that are really, really solid. But the old make money at all costs type of thing, me, let's do this, doesn't resonate with people under the age of 40 anymore. They need to be connected to something bigger, as they should, which is good. But like you said, the communism, socialism is a dead end, so that's been tried, and that's horrible too. So you have to kind of show them, something a little bit different. So we start with the big vision. And then I think it's important for people to understand the concept of innate intelligence for a variety of reasons. One, they need to know their body is organized, their body is smart, there's an intelligence behind it all. But two, it gives them the idea that this is a process, that this is a long term. And I will always discuss the issue, I will always kind of, a concept of innate intelligence that everybody grasps is the development of a baby inside the mother. Sperm and egg cell come together, they create one cell, 9 months later a baby is born. If the mom wants that baby out after 10 weeks, after 20 weeks, it's not done. There's a certain time that it takes for that to happen. If you break a bone, it will take a certain amount of time for that to happen. You don't wear a cast for a day and then are okay. If you put braces on your teeth to straighten them, you don't wear the braces for a day and have straight teeth. So you use a bunch of different analogies just so that they can grasp the concept that there's an organization in the body, certain things that take time, certain things that require a process of happening. And that will come into play later when you talk about other things. So I'm sure we've all experienced this, and we probably pretty much know that most people know absolutely nothing about how their bodies work. So you have to discuss the nerve system, what it is and what it does, and they have to kind of have at least a minimum understanding of how that operates. You have to talk about how it's protected by the skull and the vertebrae, and plastic models of the spine that they could see if they're visual learners, that they can hold if they're kinesthetic learners, and they have to understand how a subluxation occurs. So you explain what the subluxation is, you talk about the external invasionary forces that overcome the body's internal resistive forces and how subluxations occur. And you let them know that they occur regularly and in everybody. They have to understand that, and it has nothing to do with how they feel. That has to be stressed. And you can also just give some examples of potentially what can happen to the body if that were to remain there. You can't be specific because nobody can know, but you can say generally, this is what, do you think that your brain functions as well? Do you think that your muscles can function as well? And just kind of lead them down that. And my orientations are mostly me talking to people, but also asking questions here and there. It's kind of a combination of both. I've tried doing just the back and forth questions, and that takes forever. And then I've tried just doing the talking, and after a certain period, if they're not engaged, they kind of glaze over. So there has to be a little mix of everything. So we talk about subluxation, we talk about what the adjustment is. Again, outlining that this is a process. It's something that takes time to it should be like a habit that they develop. At this point we'll start talking about office policy, and Scott mentioned the no appointments, and that for me I always go to the two things that prevent people from following through with regular care are time and money. I used to think money was the biggest thing. It is actually time, by far. By far, it's not even close. So the money thing, people can find ways of paying for this. The time thing is just insane. People are working 2-3 jobs. They have kids involved in everything, and you know, I'm that. I take care of my dad. I have a family. I do all this stuff. I'm running nonstop. How often can I call you back, Mark? Right, Mark, I'll call you back. He goes, no, you won't. I'll just call you back again. I'm like, you're right. Yeah. So it's just, you know, right. I'm just running. That's just the way it is. So knowing that, you know, you can come in and have your spine checked in a minute or two and out living your life is a big sell for people. They appreciate that. They love that. That is probably more talked about than even my honor fee system, than the box on the wall. So you go over that. You go over the procedure. You also then discuss the fee system. So box on the wall, right? People pay the most they can afford to come on a regular basis. No upper limit, no lower limit. I give them the rules for that. Be here when you're supposed to be here. Pay what's fair and reasonable for your financial situation. And then when I've earned your respect and your trust, everybody you love, know, and care about needs to know about this. Those are the 3 rules. You want to be a practice member here, you have to follow those 3 rules.
Say those 3 rules again?
Be here when you're supposed to be here. Pay a fee that's fair and reasonable for your financial situation. And then the 3rd rule is, when I've earned your respect and trust, everybody you love, know, and care about needs to know about this. Chiropractic, subluxation, the office, all that stuff. And they follow through. So, then with that, with your orientation, you need to be honest. You can't be making promises that you can't substantiate. You know, well, will this get rid of my backache? I don't know. I have no idea. No one would know. Will I be, you know, will my IQ go up 10 points? I have no idea. You know, will I get healthier? Maybe. You'll be better off unsubluxated than being subluxated. That's honest. And you have to speak with authority. You have to know your craft. You have to know what you're doing, and be prepared for questions. Maybe at the beginning when you're doing this. The only question that I've been getting recently has been, well, when can I bring in my spouse, my children, you know, so and so. So your orientation, as Joe Diaz said, should be answering all the questions that most people have in their minds to begin with. And if you do that well, then that would mostly be covered. And then you won't really have any major questions. But be prepared to have them, and always be thinking as to how to respond properly. And it might be, I don't really know, or let me get back to you, let me think about it for a few minutes or a few days and then get back to you. And people like that. And get back to them. If you're going to tell them you're going to get back to them, get back to them. You know, don't let them be like, hey, 2 weeks ago I asked you this question, what happened? You don't want to go that route. Right? So the orientation will cover pretty much everything. And they know what's going on. Give them stuff to take home, even though most people don't read it, give it to them anyway. Their relatives, friends might come over one day, they might see it, then they might call you up. Hey, I saw this article you had written at so-and-so's house, and they let me keep it. I read it, I called because of that. So you never know. You never know what people will pick up. So give freely, as much information as you can to people. So once they've been through, now they're coming, you'll have what I call the table talks, right? After their first visit, I come back with any questions with any of the stuff I sent home with you, any questions about anything we discussed. I don't ask, are you feeling better? Because that will just undo everything we just talked about. I ask questions as far as, did they understand everything? Were they able to explain it to their significant other if their significant other wasn't here? Did they have any questions that you weren't able to address or you want more clarification on? And we go do that. They need to know almost every time. I don't want to say almost every time because you don't want to treat them like they're 5-year-olds, but you need to in some way convey to them that it was a good decision that they came back, almost until it becomes a habit. You made a good choice coming back here. This is good. I'm glad that you're here. I'm happy to see your spine. All that stuff. And just find different ways of phrasing that so that they can, it kind of reinforces their decision to make a good habit, right? Be 100% present. The typical person is here for like a minute or two. You don't want to be checking your cell phone or looking to see who's here while you're in the middle of adjusting somebody. Be 100% focused on them and address what they need to have addressed. And if there's any questions, would do that. And once they've been coming for a while, you don't need to continually be ramming a chiropractic message every time they're here, right? There's a point where, you know, whether they like it or not, their car will bring them here every Monday at 4 o'clock. They don't even need to think about it. It becomes such a habit. They're just here. So you don't need to, 10 years down the road, you don't need to keep trying to educate them. They got it, you know. And at that point, or whenever you feel it's appropriate, talk about life. I asked them, you know, hey, what'd you do this weekend? What did I, you know, and if you can tie it back into chiropractic, do that. If not, then don't. But let them know that you also care about them as a person. And it's not long, drawn out, 3-hour conversations. It's a minute or two, 30 seconds. And I have this crazy Greek mind of mine that my wife will give me a list of 3 things to get to the grocery store, and I might forget 2 of them. But I can remember a conversation I had about somebody, about their wedding, their kids graduating, blah, blah, blah. And I can, next time they come in, I somehow can remember and pick up on that. And they're like, wow, you know, how'd you remember that? Or I remember people's spines, but not their names. And so I have a hard time with that. You know,
yeah.
It's just,
you remember exactly that one adjustment.
Yeah. I remember, hey, this last time you were here, you had L5, T3, and C2, and you know, but you know, it is what it is.
You're like, oh, I remember this spot. Oh.
Yeah, right, yeah. You know, and to be honest, if somebody isn't here every week, I'm not going to know their name. I'm not. I mean, you almost have to be here for a couple of weeks for me to remember. It's just, you know, in and out, and so it's kind of tough. So another thing I've done recently is I let them know when I notice something positive happening. You know, if, hey, when you first came in, you had 7 subluxations. Today there were only 3. Good. I mean, that's a good thing. Let's celebrate that success. Let them know that this was good, at least for today. Now next week you might come in with 9. I don't know, but there's something positive happening, and your spine is getting easier to adjust. There's, you know, you're relaxing. Either you're relaxing better. I know Mark doesn't like to hear the word relax, but you're trusting my hands better, or your spine is moving easier, and that's what we would expect of someone coming regularly. Also, if I know they're going through a emotional crisis, or something in their lives is a little crazier, I'll make the suggestion to come more often. You know, I know you come more often. Maybe you need it, maybe you don't.
There's more external forces.
Right, there's more external invasionary forces that could potentially, yeah. And they're like, I could do that? I go, of course you could do that. I'm open 6 days a week. You can come every day for the rest of your life that I'm open to get checked. I don't care. So they you know, they know, a lot of them will know, hey, I'm working extra hours at work, would it be okay to come in an extra day or 2? Of course. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to, under-check you. I'd rather over-check you and not have to adjust you than under-check you and have you deal with subluxations that much longer. So that brings us to technique. Oh my Lord, the stories we hear. Oh, man. You know, if this is what we do, please be good at it. Yeah. And I know, you know, again, preaching to the choir, everybody here is probably on point, but I had a patient referred from a chiropractor out by Penn State, and she would tell me every time this guy